हेलो हेलो। चलिए जी, हाँ तो चेक करने का तरीका था मेरा कि कितने लोग सुन रहे हैं या नहीं सुन रहे। Anyways, welcome you once again to this particular session, a very different kind of a session. चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स ऑफ नवंबर 2022 बैच। स्वागत है आप लोगों का एक बार फिर। आप सभी को बहुत बहुत बधाई। एंड आई एम श्योर अब हनीमून पीरियड पूरा हो चुका होगा और पूरा फोकस अब करियर पे जा चुका है। इट हैज बीन ऑल दिस टाइम, all this while we are doing chartered accountancy course, it was that we had a straight path और सामने हमारे दूर कहीं बट सामने मंजिल थी जो हमारी CA की डिग्री थी, which was beyond our exams. But now it is like standing in a big, large cricket ground where there are opportunities available across at 360-degree locations. And I even don't know which direction I'm actually supposed to go at. And this is where I thought that this particular session could be of some relevance for you. इस particular session में दोस्तों आज हम डिस्कस करेंगे 3 चीजें. नंबर 1, कौन कौन सी इंडस्ट्रीज के क्या क्या फायदे और नुकसान है. एज इन Big Four, within Big Four, what different roles do I have? Tax, stat audit, internal audit, forensic, financial due diligence, mergers and acquisitions, transaction advisory services, enterprise resource management. Within banks, I have various sectors from treasury, forex to corporate banking, internal audit, retail and credit, in reverse order of number of opportunities available. इंडस्ट्री में मैनेजमेंट ट्रेनी रोल्स, नॉन मैनेजमेंट ट्रेनी रोल्स, IT कंपनीज के अंदर किस तरह के रोल्स होंगे. आई एम श्योर दिस डिस्कशन इज गोइंग टू बी मोर ऑन द इंडस्ट्री साइड कि किस इंडस्ट्री के क्या फायदे नुकसान है. प्राइमरली इवैल्यूएटिंग देम, 1 on career growth aspect, 2 in terms of work-life balance, and 3 in terms of the learning experience. Once we do that, then we'll come to the companies. I'm sure आप लोगों को पता है कि अब आपका ICAI का already क्या हो चुका है. You already have this list which the ICAI shared with you of the list of recruiting companies. And I'm sure कि इसमें अभी और additions होने वाले हैं. We did a little bit of research on this and we kind of summarized this particular set of companies which are coming in the institute campus. And as of now, the list has 228 rows, not 228 companies. The number of unique companies are a little different. I'll just share that with you. So within these companies, we know for a fact that in सारी की सारी companies में, so this is what the ICAI list looks like. इससे related कुछ useful inputs मैंने आपके लिए बनाए हैं. In fact, fast finishing school की टीम ने आपके लिए बनाए हैं. And this is basically कि जितनी भी कंपनीज आ रही हैं, a list of all those particular companies along with कौन कौन से कैंपस में ही आ रही है. जितने भी सारे डॉक्यूमेंट्स हैं, ये सारे डॉक्यूमेंट्स आपके साथ में शेयर कर दूंगा. This is all created by the fast finishing school. I'll just touch upon that also briefly. But before that, yes, ये लिस्ट आपकी सेट ऑफ कंपनीज हैं जो ICAI कैंपस में रिक्रूट करने के लिए आ रही हैं. इनमें से कुछ कंपनीज कई सालों से रिक्रूट कर रही है चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स, तो इन लोगों के पास्ट प्रोसेसेस हमें पता है. And I am going to very briefly touch upon the processes which these companies have been following to recruit chartered accountants with a little bit of इस तरह के क्वेश्चंस पूछे जाते हैं. तो अपन पेपर आउट करने की भी थोड़ी बहुत कोशिश कर लेंगे. And apart from this, we will then quickly discuss the kind of questions which are asked in the interviews. तो 3 चीजें, इंडस्ट्री इनसाइड, रिक्रूटिंग कंपनीज कौन सी है और उनके क्या प्रोसेसेस हैं, एंड फाइनली किस तरह के क्वेश्चंस हमारे आते हैं. The idea of this particular session is that you are more informed so that you can take better decision, whether it is with respect to joining a particular kind of role or industry or not, whether it is which company to select if I have multiple offers, and whether it is how to prepare and what question should I prepare for my interviews. एक बार सबसे पहले आपको मैं कुछ फास्ट फिनिशिंग स्कूल के बारे में बताना चाहूँगा. What we did is, in fact, all the recruiters, तो आपको पता है कि Fast Careers is one organization which is a sister concern of Fast, जिसमें we do placements for freshly qualified chartered accountants. अभी उसके अंतर्गत 35 लाख 35 लाख के कुछ 5 ऑफर्स रोल आउट किए जा चुके हैं नवंबर 22 चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स या नवंबर 22 की बैच पास आउट्स को. They are for the rankers, but nevertheless. And there are a lot of other companies who are still recruiting in that. कई सारे कॉर्पोरेट्स ने हमसे रिक्वेस्ट की बिकॉज वर्चुअल स्पेस में दे वांटेड अस टू ट्रेन. अभी रिसेंटली देयर वाज जस्ट दिस मीटिंग हैपेंड लास्ट वीक wherein there is this particular company, they're not participating in the ICAI campus because they need certain training to be given to the candidates before they come for the interview because they had their own share of experiences when they tried recruiting in the past. इनकी कुछ 100 odd requirements है. And this particular company wants us to first train the candidates and then offer them for the recruitment process. So because it was a desire from the corporate side, we started with this particular fast finishing school. ये क्या है? just as the name suggests, it is a finishing school wherein we've launched courses which is like 30 hours of training, जिसमें आपको primarily CV, GD, PI, aptitude, extempore, industry insight, company insight, interview questions किस तरह से prepare करना है, making you conscious about the surroundings and the fact where do you get jobs off campus, ICAI campus, preparing for that, and doing a lot of practice relating to all this stuff and giving you the information and making you a part of the group which is connected to all those stuff. So we started trainings for it. Thank you very much for your good responses in that. But this training, honestly speaking, was targeted so that, you know, we can put up candidates of the choice which the corporates were wanting. So we started it at a very, very nominal cost. We've already done kind of 3 sessions in this particular training, and the 4th one is open, and we'll start that training in the next week, already filled with the 3 sessions. Because some candidates and chartered accountants may not really have time to take a 30 hours kind of a training, what we've also done is इस तरह का एक logic लेके आए आपके लिए, which is fast campus buddies. Campus buddies का एक simple सा fundamental है कि आपको training नहीं चाहिए with respect to CV preparation, extempore, aptitude, psychometric test, ये सब क्या होते हैं. आप तो चाहते हो कि बस मैं कुछ mock GD और PI दे दूँ. So we have created a program for you, which is a very simple program where you get 1 mock GD, 2 mock PIs, 1 PI technical, 1 HR or technical as you choose. It could be any particular domain, or you want to have for a specific domain based on आज के discussion से आपने बोला कि भैया I focus, let's say, on forensic only. So you want to have into that domain, we will arrange an interview in that particular domain for you. We have a list of some around 20 odd mentors, and we have created CA buddies, which is basically people who are experienced chartered accountants. We already have some around 30 odd chartered accountants who have given their consent to take your interviews after taking a basic level of induction from us. So with this particular team, we'll help manage these particular 1-to-1 mock PIs and group GDs. Plus, we'll assign you a personal buddy. These are basically chartered accountants who've cleared in possibly the last 1 year. And they could guide you at different stages. So आपका कोई interview आ रहा है, you want to get some understanding about it, some inputs. कोई offer आया है, आपको discuss करना है, लेना चाहिए, नहीं लेना चाहिए, क्या ifs and buts होंगे. या आपको as such preparation के कोई sources चाहिए, तो you can kind of connect with these particular buddies over WhatsApp, if required over a call, and they'll guide you on an ongoing basis. Plus, we'll hold some master classes here and there in between Excel training and, case study based CDs and stuff like that. So you can get access to that. This is something which you want. Up FastKey website pe jaake you can kind of register on that. And I thought I will share this with you because obviously the fees and all is something which is kept very, very nominal because we have a clear intention that आप जब interview में जाओ तो you are better prepared, whether you go into the ICAI campus or the Fast Careers campus or any particular place. It's just that नौकरियां, in fact, your first career gets you to the right place. And ठीक है, उसके बहाने में हम मिठाई कमा लेंगे तो भी बहुत खुश है. दोस्तों, सबसे पहले अपन सेशन शुरू करें उससे पहले ICAI का ये जो कैंपस है इससे रिलेटेड 3-4 चीज़ें हमने डेवलप करी जो इंस्टीट्यूट ने अभी लिस्ट बनाई. तो बेसिकली the team developed a certain set of things in which the first thing which we have is in this particular ICAI campus, this is the list of all the companies which are coming on day premiere or day 1 at different campuses. ये आपके साथ में अभी शेयर कर दूंगा, आप देखिएगा तो आप समझाएंगे. तो जैसे एक्सेंचर इंडिया है, ये सिर्फ वो लिस्ट ऑफ कंपनीज है जो डे प्रीमियर या डे 1 पे आ रही हैं. दैट मीन्स दीज आर कंपनीज विच आर प्रिंसिपली ऑफरिंग अ बेटर पैकेज. इन सारी कंपनीज के साथ में आई हैव गिवन कैंपस सिटीज विच इज सेल्फ एक्सप्लेनेटरी. B for Bangalore, C for, so accordingly you can kind of take a call in terms of which particular cities are these. And the idea basically of sharing this particular thing with you is, so C is B for Bangalore, C for Chennai, D for Delhi, M for Mumbai, A for Ahmedabad, J for Jaipur, K for Calcutta, P for Pune. So large cities like this. So you can basically use this. So wherever you are going, if it is your company of interest and all, so you can accordingly identify. And this will be just something which will be handy with you. Otherwise, you can simply go with the institute published information itself. We've also created this particular document for you, wherein we've mentioned these are all the premier day companies, which means the ones which will be offering the highest set of packages across all locations. There is a very good list of day 1 companies, which is a huge number. However, I can see that there are a lot of Big 4 and Big 4 offshore firms which are a part of that. But ऐसा नहीं है कि सिर्फ यही है, उसके अलावा भी बहुत सारी. Then these are day 2, day 3, day 4 and day 5. These are the kind of companies which you have. So this will give you a better information in terms of what kind of companies as of there are today. And believe me, there will be more which will be added up to this particular list, despite the fact that last date वगैरह सब निकल चुकी है. उसके बावजूद भी, based on my past experience, we have seen that companies do keep adding up. Now, having shared this with you, I will try to incorporate a lot of information about at least the day premier kind of companies which are coming in recruiting in the ICAI campus and the day one companies, so that you know better in terms of how their interview preparation can be done. सेशन का सबसे पहला आज का डिस्कशन इंडस्ट्री. आपके स्पेसिफिकली अगर कोई भी सवाल है इंडस्ट्री स्पेसिफिक, तो द फर्स्ट थिंग व्हाट यू डू इज यू पुट दोस क्वेश्चंस इन द चैट हियर. इफ यू हैव एनी क्वेश्चंस लाइक दिस कि sir, I'm just looking for a job for 2 years and then possibly after 2 years I want to kind of switch over and maybe do my own business, or maybe want to go for an MBA or want to study for UPSC. If you have those kind of questions, you can put questions like that. Second, sir, I'm confused between internal audit और start audit, क्या लेना चाहिए, और I am rather confused Big Four में जाना चाहिए या नहीं जाना चाहिए. Questions like within industry, what is a management training program? Offshore or onshore, as in Indian practice or offshore practice, Big Four में, how do I compare with them? Out of India के jobs मुझे available होंगे या नहीं होंगे? So these are definitely certain things जो मैं अभी सेशन में कवर करूंगा. बट अगर आप लोग चार्ट्स में इस तरह के कुछ सवाल पूछते हैं, that's something which is going to help me to assess in terms of what are specifically your questions, so I can allocate a little more time on that and I can be a little more relevant. इनफैक्ट ये जो सेशन अभी मैं कर रहा हूँ, आज सुबह ही ये सेशन हम लोगों ने हमारे जो फास्ट कैंपस ट्रेनिंग के पार्टिसिपेंट्स हैं उनके लिए किया था, एंड दैट वाज मोर पर्सनलाइज्ड ऑन वन टू वन इंडिविजुअल बेसिस, एंड आई वाज शेयरिंग अ लॉट ऑफ इनसाइट्स विद देम. However, I think if you have any kind of questions to be put up, I would be kind of mostly able to answer all of them here. Okay, so I'm interested in internal audit. What's the FS and non-FS based profile, correct? So we discussed this in the morning in the class also. I'll kind of cover that up right away. Wonderful. So you can put your questions alongside. I would start with my session. Number one, industry. So as you could see the list of ICAI also, the highest recruiting companies would be the Big Four. I would rather say that at the top spot, it would be Big Four offshore units, followed by banks, and then followed by Indian practice if I talk about the ICAI campus. Big Four Indian practice also does a lot of off-campus recruitments. So in that sense, the absolute numbers for Indian practice could be higher, but in ICAI campus, I think the top slot would be definitely the offshore ones. I would first start with my discussion with the Big Fours. Just for the sake of discussion, we are mentioning Big Four, but I'm not just including Deloitte, PW, EY and KPMG into it, also Grant Thornton, BDO, and all the Indian firms and the likes of them who recruit chartered accountant at the fresher level for roles in statutory audit, internal audit, mostly, tax in few cases, and then some specific roles which could be systems audit, financial due diligence, forensic audit, enterprise resource management, even transaction advisory services and related stuff. The most common profile which you are going to see is going to be start audit. Start audit profile, pros, cons very quickly. Number one, the benefit of start audit is it's a generic profile. You get an advantage that you end up doing compliance or start audits of a lot of companies, so you get exposure into a lot of entities. In the long run, it is a rewarding career because you, if are on the right track, you could really be a fast track mover and can really outpace others in terms of growth. Because it's a consultancy and it's a revenue function, you definitely have an opportunity that if you, with your interpersonal skills, are going to have a good rapport with your clients and end up down the line maybe adding more business to the firms, which may sound to be very awkward to you, but which actually is the fact, you can really move up the ladder very fast. Second advantage is you would kind of do work what you've been doing in your articleship and in your studies. So you are relating to your core work activities. And third is that the number of job opportunities here are significant. One last could be that if your articleship is a very mediocre kind of an articleship, this will give you a very good starting point to join a particular organization who will have decent, good systems in place. So it will give you a lot of intangible development into your personality, your approach, your aptitude. In terms of disadvantages, the biggest disadvantage would definitely be that the biggest advantage, you will be doing what you've been doing. So normally हम चाहते नहीं है कि हमने जो किया हम वही आगे करें, because we know, so what we know the devil in it. What we don't know, we always expect to see the angel in it. And for that particular reason, you may want to do something different. So you don't want to do the same mundane thing which you're doing in articleship. So that's one reason not for choosing it. Two, there's a very bad work-life balance. In fact, the attrition rates in stat and internal audit in Big Fours could be as high as 40-50%. So the employee churn is very, very high, and that primarily one big reason for that could be that it really has a bad work-life balance. Three, if you expect that I'm getting into stat audit and I'll get a chance to move out of stat audit and get into industry because I have had taken too many attempts, so I may not get opportunities in the core businesses right in the very first place. Let me tell you, I personally feel that that may not hold true mostly. Unless and until you take jump within the first 1 year, you have a very small probability of shifting your role from stat audit to any other role after 2 years of your practice. Your only role shifting could be from one firm to another within stat audit itself. That's how the majority works. There could be 10% exceptions to the generic rule, but 90% of the cases, it'll be difficult to shift domains. In terms of growth, yes, it offers you good growth, if not in the initial 3, 4, 5 years, but then yes, you can actually then with your performance really do much better in these particular firms in comparison to industry, where the growth comparatively in the same company would be a little slow paced, or it will be more on a hierarchical basis. This is the way I would suggest or compare stat audit pros and cons. So what we've done is a lot of things we've also kind of mentioned here in terms of how it is. Also, to add on that stat audit roles, if you get into any of the firms, there are normally sector specific stat audit teams also. So not every big firm or big four, but few of them would divide the stat audit population into. So let's say, for example, EY could do a division wherein they say that we have different stat audit firms for the banking sector, financial service sector, different for IT, telecom, and entertainment, and a separate one for manufacturing and pharma. So in that sense, which stat audit, if you have a choice, you should prefer? Definitely the one which will give you more growth opportunities down the line, which means the one which is the biggest sector of them. So banking financial would be a very, very niche. So you may want to avoid that particular thing. So you'll rather be preferring to get into industry, which is manufacturing, core manufacturing related, or else IT, telecom, and entertainment, hospitality, those kind of service industry. So either the manufacturing sector or the service sector, possibly not the financial sector. Unless and until you're very keen that I want to get into financial sector, don't expect that you get into financial sector, you'll have an opportunity to get into financial roles or finance jobs or investment banking altogether down the line. That's a very, very far ask. Next, the next part is internal audit. Any questions you have on stat audit, please put it across. Internal audit, the biggest advantage is that there is an opportunity in internal audit that you do internal audit for 2 years in a particular company or an industry, and you may get absorbed into that particular company or industry unless they have a no compete clause or something. So let's say, for example, you've been working in internal audit in the pharma sector. It could possibly so happen that after 2 years, core manufacturing companies like Cipla, Glenmark, Johnson & Johnson, or others can pick you up from there, or your experience would be relevant for them. Because internal audit and stat audit, basic difference is stat is compliance. And internal is not compliance. It is more of a business risk oriented. So you get to see the business a little more closely in internal audit than in stat. And that is why you have that added advantage. Against which the bigger disadvantage is that it involves a strenuous amount of traveling. So it is even worse in terms of work-life balance with stat audit. And usually the salary packages are comparatively lesser in internal audit than in stat audit. And this is something which is prevalent across most of the big fours. So internal audit, should I really get into? I would suggest that if you want to really understand business that's of your liking, you're ready to put extra hours for it, even with a sacrifice on the compensation, only then you should go for it. But you definitely have a good, strong opportunity to move to the industry. One big catch in internal audit could be that if you get into internal audit in a particular company, sometimes some big four or larger companies would allot you one single client and you'll end up doing internal audit of that client only, which may not really be the best thing to do because you go there with a perspective that you get more experiences. And for that particular reason, you could very safely say that if you're getting into internal audit, make very, very sure that the firm or company which you're joining, please make sure with your seniors, you can take our help to understand, is there a possibility that they'll allocate you to one single client and you may have to spend a long part of your career, at least initial 1 year, full year, 2 years into that particular thing only? I would strongly suggest then you should reconsider your decision on it. Apart from that, it pretty much remains more or less same for internal with stat. Any questions on internal audit, please share that. Next is your tax. Tax comparatively, if you talk about, is more rewarding. The initial salary packages and even the growth, all of them could be more rewarding. I have personally seen somebody aged 32 years becoming partner in one of the big fours. And how did we come to know about it? These people came to when we were organizing Fast CA campus drives physically pre-COVID days. So he actually came there to present and do the pre-placement talk. And the reason that Big Four specifically got him to place was to showcase that this is a real truth that a guy at 32 years of age is a partner. This possibly may not be possible in any of the other domains, mostly apart from tax. So tax is purely this particular game. It may not definitely involve traveling or any kind of that sort to client location too much. It would, whether it would be very strenuous, so it depends on which role amongst tax you are into. So tax within Big Four also have different domains. Most of the job openings you would find would be into transfer pricing because the Big Fours do majority of their business in that particular domain and mergers and acquisitions. Then you also have corporate tax litigations and others. If we talk about mergers and acquisition, if you get into that kind of a tax role, it is very, very value adding and enriching because you're talking about mergers and acquisition happening and you are basically the part of doing the tax due diligence for it. So it's very value adding because you're seeing real life cases of mergers and of large entities and you're evaluating the tax perspective for it. But definitely it will be a very, very strenuous job because anything to do with mergers and acquisition, transaction advisory would have really long working hours, really long. So tax, if you are into maybe the litigation side or corporate tax, it may not be as, or there'll be seasonal work pressures, but in M&A, it should be like 13 out of 12 months, you'll be under work pressure. So if you're joining tax basically for a better work-life balance, then also decide which stream are you going to take up. Definitely tax is only meant for people who really have a clear-cut inclination for tax, and more than that, they have a strong articleship background into it. Despite the fact these Big Fours usually would tell you that, okay, even if you don't have an articleship experience into tax, we're still okay to look at you. And that's more of an HR verdict because once you actually get into the line manager interview, he would be grilling you right from the very first question in such a manner that unless and until you've really done some work in tax during your office, and I'm not saying basic work, core work like filing of tax audit return forms and all, it's very, very unlikely that you would basically be able to sail through the interview. That's a very far cry or just more of fantasy rather than a reality. So I would strongly suggest that only if you have a strong articleship experience of working in tax and you're ready to really brush up your concepts very, very, very in a very detailed manner before your interviews, only then apply for this particular role. Otherwise, your chances are less. It's a good role to be into because if you want to get into that legal consultancy and you have that kind of a mindset, it makes sense. Whether this would help me to set up my own practice down the line, maybe 10, 15 years later, you can have your own practice set it up, but not in the initial 2 to 5 years because the kind of clients you'll be dealing with the Big Fours usually will not be the clients which you will have in your initial level of practice. It could so happen after 15 years where you have developed that kind of a client base. If you are interested to join in your own practice, I would rather recommend to join a non-Big Four kind of a, not amongst the top 10, but more amongst the top 20, 30, 50 firms, specifically the ones who are more into specific tax related work. I think there you will get more experiences which you will be able to relate to when you get into your own practice. Tax also has some indirect tax openings, which are again not very much, but yes, it is also there. Then you have financial due diligence, some call it transaction advisory services. There could be a difference in it. This is primarily nothing but mergers and acquisitions consultancy. So Big Four also have a mergers and acquisition consulting or a business consulting arm. But this arm is not primarily, this is more in terms of a compliance kind of thing, that two entities are getting together and one is boasting about its own valuation and the other one definitely wants to get a due diligence done just to ensure that what they are speaking makes sense or not, to what extent does it make sense. So this is more on those grounds that you do a financial due diligence, wherein you basically see the financials, you see the business, you see the environment, you meet people, and based on that, you create a report in terms of whether the stake the company is making, the valuations it is seeking make sense or not. This is not in terms of advising that you should acquire this particular company and you will have these operational synergies by acquiring this particular company, or this is a good target for you. That is something which is more so done by the big three consulting firms, which is Bain, McKinsey, and BCG. The Big Four would be more in terms of helping you to, once you have decided on a particular transaction, then doing a due diligence before that transaction gets through. So like Vodafone and Idea, when they actually merged together, Vodafone, it's in the news that they got some 13 different kinds of due diligences. Some of them were tax, some of them were financial and legal due diligences. Whereas if we talk about Idea, they did none of them. So, the way Indians think, and, so we go with our gut feeling and understanding and what we see rather than an external person justifying what we are doing is correct or not. So in that sense, this is more of a recheck in terms of before we get into that particular transaction. Long strenuous working hours, huge prospect for growth. Work here for a year or two, get an opportunity to shift either to the industry or even to an equity research firm, wherein a research firm will pick you up, or even a business consulting firm like Bain, McKinsey type, who will pick you up just because of your domain expertise, knowledge of working in that particular sector. So it could be a really, I would rather say this would be mostly for those set of people who really don't want a work-life balance, ready to work 20 out of 24 hours a day, 365 days in a year, or at least 300, and are kind of looking at that real high-paced growth. I would say that initial part of your career, if you get a job into this and you're ready to slog that extra hour, you're okay with not having the right work-life balance, it's quite advisable. But usually you won't find these jobs too many, because even if these companies have to offer, they'll normally offer to their own articles, who've done their articleship from Big Four or would prefer to have rankers onto it. So I think that summarizes transaction advisory, financial due diligence. iBanking with Big Fours is mostly with respect to what I just said, mergers and acquisitions and those said. And enterprise performance management is again a consulting firm, wherein they'll use some IT and other tools to help you in terms of process improvement, system implementation stuff. There's also systems audit wing, wherein you basically join them and help them in systems audit. You will be a part of team of software engineers and chartered accountant, where majority would be of the software engineers. You will have a tough time understanding them. They will have no tough time understanding you, because they will rather be very happy to kind of take a laugh at you कि ये बेचारा मेहनत ही करते रहता है. But इसमें क्या career बनाया जा सकता है? Initial years could be really, really tough if you get into it, because it is not core CA related work, but you get a lot of opportunities, even global, because there are not many people who do really well at systems audit stage with a chartered accountancy background. If you're planning for a systems audit kind of a role, immediately enroll for CISA. DISA से ज़्यादा अच्छा है. You will also get international opportunities onto it. Indirect tax profile, somebody said elaborate. It's similar to tax, is that you will be doing more of GST consultancy. Honestly speaking, there aren't too many openings as such at that particular stage with most of these big firms, because there is not too many churn around it. And I mean, the practice though is there, but it is not growing as it grows in the direct tax space, because of the kind of litigations and other things which happen in the direct tax space rather than the indirect tax. So yeah. Foreign opportunities for internal audit, yes, you can. In fact, definitely with any of the big fours, you will at some point of time or the other may get opportunities of that sense, because you're since not dealing with compliance issues and business issues, you will, and you can get those opportunities. But again, because the appetite here itself is so very large, they may not really offer you or want to offer you into those roles in the same firm. So you may have to jump ships. So I hope this kind of clarifies with most of these particular roles. There could be some specific other roles also with any of the big fours or other firms. But these are the more popular ones, which I thought I would cover them first. Okay, any questions still here? SOX compliance, okay, so any company which is listed in the US or any company which is providing any kind of outsourcing services to companies which are listed in the US are required to compulsorily get a SOX compliance report, which essentially is kind of what you study in corporate governance. It is a more elaborate, rigid, and graver form of corporate governance what we have in India. तो यूएस का जो PCAOB है, Public Companies Accounting Oversight Board, वो बोलता है कि any company which is listed will have to get their internal controls vetted and compliances vetted by an entity which is registered with PCAOB. And even companies which are providing outsourcing services, accounting and other outsourcing services to these listed entities, public interest entities, what they call, even they have to get it done. So companies like Infosys and all, they are otherwise listed, but otherwise because they provide outsourcing services, so they have to get this SOX compliance done. So that is a very niche area of working. Does it make sense to get into these niche area of working? Honestly speaking, the more niche the area is, you will develop more expertise, you will become more valuable down the line. But your growth would primarily come with sticking with 1 or 2 or 3 companies maximum throughout your career. So it will not be too much of jumping off ships. इन सारी कंपनियों में अप्लाई कैसे करें? तो I'll just touch upon the industry first and then I'll talk about the companies and I'll that point of time also tell you कि ये companies कहाँ से recruit करती हैं. Banks. So what I've not touched about is the offshore part of it. Big Fours में जो offshore entity होती है, so Deloitte has a very big unit in Hyderabad, Gurgaon, even Jaipur. Now PwC is the highest recruiter in their global delivery center or the service delivery center. We have a GT also running the same thing. KPMG also have that kind of setup. EY, GSS is also, there is another kind of setup for that. ये सब लोग क्या करते हैं? They will have resources here who will be doing auditing for entities who are sitting outside. So you समझ लीजिए कि there's a company in US who has their auditors as EY. So people there obviously are more expensive. So they will do things which are required to be done by being present there. And anything else, starting from vouching verification space to anything which can be verified through a digitized document, all those things would be outsourced to the unit here. The team would be trained into that particular law domain requirement, and then they'll be doing, sitting here, those kind of audits. The advantage is this particular space has comparatively a little better work-life balance, unlike the Indian practice, better HR. Indian firms में तो पता नहीं HR होता भी है कि नहीं CA के लिए, होना चाहिए, but इनमें at least work-life balance आपका बेहतर होता है. Problem इसकी सिर्फ ये है कि what you are doing is you're not meeting any of the clients at any point of time, and it is 100% kind of online stuff. So it could become a very back office kind of a role, back end kind of a role, with no real action in front of it, at least for the initial 3 to 5 years. It's only you and your boss. It's only after 5 years then you really start facing the client side or something or the other, or you get an opportunity of that sense. The growth also would be mostly restricted amongst these big fours from one to another. Or there are a lot of other accounting firms also, but usually these other firms do not pay as much as the big fours do. So you will not really have a chance to move out of a big four, which means essentially within India, you will be just jumping shifts from one of these 4 big fours, from one to the other. Out of India, you do get an opportunity. So in that sense, this is better than the Indian practice. But in terms of, I would rather say that the growth prospect and everything is more or less average. So Indian practice would have better growth prospects. Would I recommend offshore or Indian practice? I think Indian practice for sure the first preference, because you really get to see the clients and you do work for your own self or your own entity and not for somebody else as a assistant. So definitely the job satisfaction would be more. But people who are looking for work from home, yes, these companies do still have an option of giving you work from home. In fact, in some cases, they also do give a permanent work from home also, which is not there in the Indian firms as of the moment. So they may give you a partial work from home for some time or the other, which gradually as the time progresses is becoming lesser and lesser. But in offshore audit firms, you get that opportunity. So if you're not willing to move out for whatever reasons, this could be a real good, opportunity for you. Right. Indirect tax growth opportunity, I mean, average, very average, because there's not much of an action there. See, action होगा तो क्या होएगा, आपको दूसरी कंपनियां ढूंढेगी कि अरे मुझे जीएसटी का बंदा चाहिए, वहां से लाके दो, यहाँ से लाके दो, तो डिमांड बढ़ेगी तो तेजी आएगी. तो वो डिमांड इस सच बहुत ज़्यादा बिग फुल लेवल पर उसकी है नहीं, तो तेजी आती नहीं है. तो ग्रोथ एज सच क्या है आपका, धीरे धीरे उसी इंडस्ट्री में आप अपनी एक्सपर्टीज बना के कर लो तो आ जाएगा. For indirect tax. चलिए जी दोस्तों. Now let's come to banks. Banks में there are whole plethora of openings which are available. This time HDFC being the maximum, has the maximum appetite from the ICAI campus. And it used to be ICICI all these years, but this time it is HDFC. Normally इनके roles क्या होते हैं? तो starting first with the most offered role is credit manager. आपके पास credit profile यानी application आएगी, evaluate करना है, इसको लोन देना है या नहीं देना है. किस तरह के लोन्स होंगे? नॉर्मली बिजनेस लोन्स. पीएस को यूजुअली हाउसिंग लोन, रिटेल लोन, व्हीकल लोन इन सब में नहीं डालेंगे, बट इट विल बी स्मॉल बिजनेस. एक रिटेल बैंकिंग भी होता है विच इन्वॉल्व सम काइंड ऑफ रिलेशनशिप बैंकिंग. इन दिस you will get confirmed leads that this person wants to have a certain loan, and you need to meet them and understand their requirements and suggest the product. Also follow up with them. Here you will have some targets also, and this will involve an element of sales also. So not definitely the one which is most preferred. Internal audit, a lot of banks have their own internal audit division, like Kotak is one of them, HDFC to some extent is another. So they will recruit you into their internal audit department, and you will have to do internal audit for that bank. It's not involved too much of a traveling per se, but yes, this will be just banking. One of the best roles to be into a bank would be a corporate banking role, where you deal similar to credit appraisal loan, but for larger borrowers. So you'll be working for corporate. So here you do get an opportunity from moving from one segment to another within the same bank. You also have treasury and forex, wherein you'll be allotted the treasury department of the bank, which will be investing mostly in debt funds or hedge funds. And you will gradually be a part of it in terms of initial stage, maybe suggesting or helping the people who are doing this fund management, and gradually also moving to the front end side. From here, will I be getting an opportunity to move out of a bank into a fund? Maybe in debt funds, you can find an opportunity, but not really too much in equity, because banks may not, all of them will be very aggressive in terms of equity investments. Mostly it will be debt funds. Should I get into a bank? Just make sure that if you get into a bank, you make your career in a bank. You don't get opportunities to move out of bank after a couple of years. So if it's bank, and it's bank forever. Normally all these banks, particularly the ones which are now private but were semi-private or government types earlier, HDFC, ICICI, Axis. All these particular banks have big appetite for chartered accountants, huge, and they recruit in large numbers. They all have strong HR functions, so you won't have as such problems in these particular banks per se. However, these particular banks, just make sure that your role involves a clear demarcation whether there is any kind of relationship or sales involved or not. But if you want to join, I would rather put it like this, that corporate banking, treasury, these roles are the roles where you should really think of taking these roles, even at the cost of other roles. But credit, retail are definitely the roles which are options of the last resort. Let me not say it like that, but ये fact है दोस्तों कि you may prefer not to be on the banking sector just because you will like to be in a sector where there is more action. And to explain what I just told to you, let me come to my personal favorite pick, which is industry. And I'll compare that with bank. You have any questions on bank, I'll just kind of touch upon that as well. इंडस्ट्री की जब मैं बात कर रहा हूँ तो आप यूँ समझ लो कोई भी जो कोर बिजनेस कर रहा है, जैसे कि मैन्युफैक्चरिंग एंटिटी कुड बी लाइक हिंदुस्तान यूनिलीवर्स, Marico, Vedanta, ITC, it could be Mahindra and Mahindra, Cipla, Reliance, Godrej, any of these entities who are doing manufacturing stuff. Similarly, I could also put up like a case of service sectors. They are also part of industry. So when I say service sector, I would principally refer to telecom, even IT companies in that sense, construction, real estate, hospitality, hotels and all. They are also part of industry, I would say, business. So I would also add up pharmaceutical companies onto it. So all these entities are basically doing business. And they recruit chartered accountants in their finance, come accounts, come planning, come strategic investments, come internal audit kind of roles. Now, please understand this very, very carefully, because this is, I would personally recommend the place where you would actually want to start your career. So what happens is like any of these particular entities ultimately would be having an accounts or a finance or whatever you give, whatever name you give, department who will be basically handling stuff like what? Number one, simple basic stuff, voucher processing, payment approving, purchase orders clearance, passing the purchase order, basic stuff like that. Is that something which a chartered accountant does? Of course. Then compliance with TDS, GST, other laws and regulations. All that stuff which basically is finance related, payment related, receipt related. Second would be accounting roles which could involve data creditor reconciliations, matching those particular numbers, ensuring that reconciliation happens across. Third could be that you are more into MIS, wherein you kind of see the data and make meaningful information out of it and present it, which would help in making business plans. So every company would have a business cycle, plan cycle, wherein once in a year, they'll make a plan for the next 3 years or 5 years. So basically analyzing information, giving it there, identifying on a monthly basis variances. It could involve your cost budgeting, variance analysis, revenue, forecasting, stuff like that. You can say this is MIS come financial planning and analysis kind of a role. It could also involve internal audit if that particular company has their in-house internal audit division. You can also involve yourself into a role which could be corporate finance, wherein you will be managing finance of the whole corporate in terms of kahan se kitna, kaun se unit se aayega, kahan deploy karenge, stuff like that. It could be strategic business investment unit, wherein the company would have a separate unit where they'll be deciding where to invest their excess surplus funds and you being a part of it. New project development initiative, where existing large corporates taking up any new projects or initiative would have a separate group who would basically help establishing that right from the basic, which will involve capex and other stuff. So many things relating to accounting and finance would happen, and every business would need possibly a chartered accountant for most of these roles. And that is why, because this is a division which is going to be there in any particular industry, any business. And usually chartered accountants would be the best fit for it. So this is actually the core CA job, where the majority of the chartered accountants, other than the banking roles and the audit firms, would get absorbed. And the best part of this particular role is that you are basically helping one real business in doing their business, rather than you being a consultant giving advice or doing just compliances. And B, because every company has this, there is a huge amount of career growth which you can get by jumping the ships, which is from one to another to another company. You have a very good company, very good rapport in that company. You can stick in that company for 10, 15 years and enjoy your comfort experiences in that company, and maybe, take ESOPs at a later stage and continue with it. Or you can every 2-3 years take a jump, move on to the next company and get double the bonus. So you take one appraisal here and then you take a shift and then you get another increment there. Obviously, you'll take an increment for jump. So all the Flipkarts and Amazons or the startups, every particular unit, including the ones which I mentioned, all of them would have this particular division and appetite for chartered accountants in these roles. The great part about this particular role is you're doing core business. It's no flair role, it's no fancy role, and core business role per se. So in that sense, there's nothing per se which could go very wrong in it. Unless and until the only demerits is because you're joining these corporates, normally these jobs may not guarantee you the posting on a particular space or a location, so they may keep you mobile. Second problem could be that if you really get into a wrong role, like a pure reconciliation kind of a role, then your life would be really very tough. So locational constraints, if you just don't get the right profile at the initial stage, so few years of your career could become really difficult. Apart from that, this particular roles are pretty well. Growth within a company may not be huge. Jumping the companies can be extraordinary, means extraordinary. There will be no dearth of opportunities in these roles. You can always shift from these roles to accounting roles, compliance roles, audit roles in any particular industry. So these are kind of universal donors. From this place, you can go to any other place, mostly other than the financial service sector. So in that sense, this should be, I guess, a safe bet to take. Obviously, this is not meant for people who want to get into investment banking kind of roles and all, core finance roles, or a business consulting role, because those are the more fancier ones, more remunerative ones, and the more challenging ones. And because of that, the number of requirements also are comparatively lesser. So I think apart from this, either industry, some companies have created management trainee role, which is brilliant a role to join, wherein they will basically give you 3 months stint in their different divisions. So these divisions could primarily be, let's say, 3 months stint in one of their business, 3 months stint in corporate finance, 3 months stint in, let's say, new businesses. And like this, they will want you to move 3 months into all these businesses, understand the DNA of the company, their philosophy, their culture. And after that, aapko kya karna hoga? They'll be posting you to any of their one business units. They may take your preference. If they have opening there, they'll post you there. So what happens is management training program becomes, you can say basically this is actually a brand statement for these companies to attract fresh talent, because this concept is very prevalent to recruit MBAs. So Big Four, all the IMs or B schools, if you talk about, industry recruit people into their management training program. That's why its name is management training. To attract chartered accountant talent, also what they have done is a lot of companies have started including CAs also into this community of MBAs. In some cases, even engineers, architects, and they are accordingly creating a batch or pool because they are recruiting people from campuses. And that's why the name is management training. Nothing really to do with too much of a management for you, except that you are a part of the group which is primarily designed and aimed for having people who can understand the business and gradually down the line also manage them. So management trainee roles could be really exciting, but only and only in cases where these roles have been already well established with those particular companies. So just a new company coming up with this particular role may have those initial teething issues and may not really give you the best of the experiences. So if you're joining this role, just make sure that this is quite prevalent and it's been there in that particular company for a while. Then if you talk about the rankers or the first attempters, you will have roles into business consulting, which will be with the big three, Bain, BCG, McKinsey, wherein McKinsey and BCG definitely kind of do recruit CAs. So they've been recruiting for last 3 to 4 years now. And it's a very fancy role. It has a lot of magnetism, irrespective of any cons in that particular role with respect to work-life balance and you being a consultant, not doing things hands-on, but kind of only giving a consultation. The role itself has that kind of a magnetism that if you get a chance to get work into these particular companies, because you work with the best of the minds, you will not be able to refuse. In terms of salary packages, industry, the best packages providers in the industry would be providing much better package than these companies, but here the growth prospect would be much, much higher. The performance incentives could be much, much higher. Work-life balance will be tremendously on the negative side bad, but the culture and the overall work environment would be extraordinary. Then last is finance, or I've not included those particular roles here, finance, and because you have very few requirements. But if you want to get into finance or core investment banking, not with the big fours, but I-banking firms, now these roles are very, very few, hence reserved for rankers in most of the cases, or people who have some strong references. Here in these roles, you normally would be a part of the team who will be evaluating investment opportunities available if you are working with a fund, or who will basically be getting people who want investments and they will be trying to connect with potential investors. In either of the cases, you will have to create a whole case study, analyzing by meeting people, businesses, taking the research reports, doing your analysis, and submitting a presentation saying that whether this investment makes sense, whether we should indulge into it or not. So that is primarily one kind of a private equity or investment banking kind of a role. Very, very, you can say high growth, in fact, highest growth potential industry, and share ki savari jaisa hai. If the markets are running, you can add 100% bonus every year. That means if your salary is 20, you end up earning 40 lakhs. But if the markets are bad, you may be stagnated and you may just have to work at the same salary levels for 3-4 years as well. So it's a high risk, high return game, very, very fancy, very exciting. And if you get an opportunity into these roles, you may also want to not take the roles with the big three, the business consulting firms, and want to get into this because it has that kind of a huge potential to make mint real big money. So Harshad Mehta, Ketan Parekh kind of, outputs not on those lines, but yes, Rakesh Jhunjhunwala kind of lines is definitely, kind of what you aspire to be into. So those would be iBanking roles. If you're not got a rank, obviously don't expect too much unless and until you have a strong reference. Even if you expect, then look out for boutique firms, not the very popular ones, which have smaller strength, smaller sizes, and are looking for good talent, seeing their mind and not just their academics or past records. Yeah, that's about it. A lot of gyan. Chaliye, so very quickly, let's see the questions. Is it possible to start with an audit role with Big Four and then shift to a particular industry? Internal audit to industry, yes. Start audit to industry, chances are lesser. Is it possible to start with direct tax in Big Four and that get to Treasury Department and bank? How come? I don't think I can cope with Big Four life balance. Thinking about Big Four offshore, is it vital to wait for campus shortlisting or try off campus first? So if I just ask you a question, where do you majority of the... Okay, so if you would see majority of people actually do get their jobs nowadays. I should not say majority of them get their jobs, but I should say that the majority of the companies nowadays also recruit off campus. So all the large companies which you'll be finding in the ICAI campus list, you'll find a lot of them doing off campus recruitments. Because ICAI campus has become a campus of the last resort, because you don't get anything in the ICAI campus, then mostly you will not get any decent good opportunities outside that. And that is primarily and principally the reason that companies also know that ICAI campus is the place where they'll fill up all their, I'm talking about the large recruiters, so they'll fill up their other requirements primarily from that particular space. Exception could be certain companies like HDFC in that sense is recruiting in these many numbers. First time they've been recruiting, but not in these large numbers. But yes, exception would be PwC, SDC and all who kind of rely purely on ICAI campus to recruit people. If you talk about Deloitte, US practice, they would not come to the campus. They'll not do off-campus recruitment. They'll do all their recruitments on their own. So you will not find Deloitte coming into the ICAI campus per se. It's only EY, KPMG and PwC what you look at. Deloitte does their fresher recruitments on their own self. So if you're saying that should I go for off-campus or wait for the ICAI campus, I would rather put it like this, that I'm pretty surprised if you have this question. You should definitely look for an off-campus job as well. So ICAI campus definitely is one option, but please don't keep that as your first option. In fact, put it as your one core, basic, most important, but last option. So try to get any particular jobs which you can off market, off the ICAI campus is what I would suggest. एंटरप्राइज परफॉर्मेंस मैनेजमेंट बेसिकली टूल्स वगैरह यूज़ करते हैं ये कई तरह के, और पेरेटो एनालिसिस और ये सब होता है आपके मैनेजमेंट में, Six Sigma and stuff like that. So they kind of implement that. So you become a part of the team and you help a company getting into those implementing those performance management tools and getting business improvements. So I have not seen too many CAs getting recruited in it because you're just a part of the bigger, larger team, which will be most of technocrats and MBS. Cool. If a person has very good profile with the best college, CFA, Big Four, and first MCA, well, placement agencies not considering them for opportunities which are available for rankers in IB. Unfortunately, sometimes what happens is we get a very clear mandate that we just need rankers for IB. So we also tell them many a times that, I have people who have extraordinary, exceptional records. And they say that's okay, but we are looking at rankers because we've been recruiting rankers all throughout. And then we say that, we just kind of limiting our population. So if we really try convincing them too much because of reasons, as you mentioned, others, for people like you, these companies says, okay, let's look at the rankers first. And if required, we'll look at the other lot later on. So principally speaking, these companies have their own reasons for it. And it's just that somewhere or the other, they will have to draw a line that, I always have a potential even to get a very good candidate from a non-first attempt, right? So why just first attempt? But then because first attempt has proven something better than the others, so has the rankers. So that's just a filter for me. It may not be a scientific filter, but going with the law of probability, it makes sense to have that particular filter because if I have to divide the population, so I know I will get my set of people. Anybody and everybody would not say a no to me. So, why do I look at it? So most of these firms, because of that, will have this kind of a filter put in. We had convinced at certain stages other IB firms also, if not the MNC ones, but the other ones, to kind of recruit people in with a first attempt kind of a background and all. They did it also, in an attempt or so, but then they once again resorted back to rankers. I think that's more of a psychological taboo, or maybe the rankers performed better. We don't know, but yes, that's happened. There is another one thing, Barclays, Goldman Sachs, and companies like these. So please remember, these are not iBanking firms. They do not offer you iBanking roles. What they offer is purely an analyst role. And an analyst primarily would be, you will basically be getting data, you will be processing that data, making meaningful information out of it and giving it to the fund managers who will be then investing. So you'll be at best mid office or back office. In any case, if you are in mid office or back office, your chances of getting into the front office is not even 10%. So joining in any of the Credit Suisse or JP Morgans or Barclays or Macquarie's, if you're joining into their division of analyst, please remember analyst roles are more of MIS, or I should not say MIS, but it was a kind of quasi MIS research roles. Goldman and all have pure accounting roles wherein you do their fund accounting, stuff like that. So don't go there with an anticipation or aspiration that I'll get into fund management down the line. Definitely, these companies have extraordinary HR and work culture. They have very low attrition rates. They give you global opportunities outside India. So in that sense, those are the pluses for them, but definitely not core finance. Yeah. Please share these PDFs. Yeah. So I'll just share one community link. You can just join in there. I'll be sharing all these PDFs there. So it'll be easy for you to kind of pick it up from there, and easy for me as well to share it at one particular place. I'm just kind of pinging it up here. Okay, cool. So I think, yeah, this is a good industry-wise discussion in terms of what it is. Now, quickly coming on to the particular companies, what is their processes? So I'll just take 10 minutes and just kind of brush up with this. And then the other part of what kind of questions and all other things come, maybe we'll either keep it for later or I'll just share those PDF with you. Now, I'm sure you have your own plans and series to kind of watch, because very soon you'll be getting a job and you'll be into a company. Then you will not get too much of time except on your Fridays and Saturdays. तो जितनी भी Netflix की खत्म करनी है तुमको, यही समय है तुम्हारे पास. तो I've just shared the link. आप उसको join कर लो. It's a WhatsApp link. Whether it is clickable or not. नहीं. What did I do? Okay, I'm sharing a clickable one. WhatsApp community है, वहाँ पे join कर लो. I'll share these all these PDFs there. जो भी click हो जाएगा देना. ठीक है दोस्तों, तो coming on to the companies, okay. Big Fours में, how do I get into Big Fours? Wow. Easiest of the ones. Normally इनमें एक HR round होगा. तो CV shortlisting, HR round, technical round खत्म. नॉर्मली पहले एचआर फिर टेक्निकल, या पहले टेक्निकल फिर एचआर, जो जैसा अवेलेबल है उसके बेसिस पे. टेक्निकल सिंगल होता है, कुछ केस में डबल होता है. नॉर्मली एक पार्टनर राउंड होगा, अनलेस रिक्वायरमेंट बहुत ज़्यादा है तो पार्टनर राउंड स्किप भी कर देते हैं. टैक्स वगैरह में डेफिनेटली पार्टनर राउंड होता है, तो रिक्वायरमेंट जितनी कम, प्रोसेस उतना ज़्यादा. क्या तरह के क्वेश्चन आते हैं? रेज्यूम, एक जनरल सा रूल समझ लो, हर जगह रेज्यूम बेस्ड क्वेश्चन तो आएगा ही. उसके अलावा करंट अफेयर्स हर कोई पूछेगा. इंडेस थोड़े बहुत, पर्टिकुलरली एसेट रिलेटेड 216, 36 एंड इंडेस 116, 115 रेवेन्यू और लीजेस, इनफैक्ट लीजेस एंड रेवेन्यू फ्रॉम कॉन्ट्रैक्ट विद कस्टमर्स. एक्सपेंस के 1237. ये कुछ कॉमनली आज स्टैंडर्ड्स हैं जो बहुत अच्छे से ग्रिप कर लेना. आईटीसी के फंडामेंटल, जीएसटी के, ये सब कॉमन है, सब जगह आएगा. रेज्यूम बेस्ड क्वेश्चन कैसे आ सकते हैं, दैट्स ऑल टुगेदर बिग डिफरेंट टॉपिक ऑल टुगेदर. उसके लिए ट्रेनिंग ज्वाइन करो और समझो, या फिर अलग से कभी सेशन लेंगे. बट इन सब के अलावा क्या होता है वो मैं आपको स्पेसिफिकली बता दूंगा. तो आई वुड मोर फोकस ऑन दोज राउंड्स, और राउंड्स में पूछते क्या. तो बिग फोर में विच डोमेन आर यू गोइंग, बेस्ड ऑन दैट विल बी आस्क्ड द क्वेश्चन. If you get into mergers and acquisition, you expect SFM related business decision making, capital budgeting, even those kind of questions also coming up to you. If you're getting into tax, definitely pure tax. You're getting into audit, definitely essays would be added to your own role. This is all along with your articleship thing. What they'll test and all, that's okay. Roles offered and other things we've kind of discussed. ICICI Bank, they take a psychometric test, OPQs. If you clear that test, then they do your interview. If you don't clear that test, they ask you to give that test again. Unless and until you clear it. And once you clear it, then they'll take your interview. It'll be one simple interview which could run around 15 minutes. And they would usually offer 2 out of 3 candidates. If the numbers are too large, which would happen in the ICAI campus, they may also resort to group discussion, as they did in the previous cases. Basic banking related questions and ratio analysis related questions are expected. Infosys is one IT company which does JDPIs in the ICAI campus placements. They primarily recruit through ICAI campuses only. Mostly it is CV based and a little bit of your CA final syllabus. SBI Capital Market is one, it gave a lot of opportunities last time. Not sure about this. Adani Group is participating. Sure, you'll have to read the Hindenburg's report before going for their interviews. This is basically the kind of things which they kind of ask here. They have a management training program which they have created, and there will also be an HR round into it. Yes Bank, first round would be of line manager and second would be of the team manager. Again, banking related stuff. So this is very well self-explanatory kind of. Wipro has an excellent process in terms of a beautiful process which they have designed, very elaborate, and they do it on their own, not through the ICAI camp, but Wipro cohorts program is what they call. So it is a mix of written test, which is a filter criteria, and that's the biggest filter criteria. Even TCS used to recruit for a long period of time from ICAI campus. So they used to take a written test, which was an elimination round, and a lot of people got eliminated into it. My times, even I got eliminated. Even I was eliminated. So TCS, Wipro has that test, and then after that test, which is more of an aptitude psychometric test, the details are here in terms of what they ask in that test. Even it has finance, English, verbal, logical reasoning stuff. Then you have 2 rounds of technical interviews, and then if you clear that, a final HR round to discuss the job prospects and other things. ITC has one of the most grilling interviews. ITC and Airtel, these are the companies who will really take your interviews in that sense that ITC particularly, when you come out of the interview, you'll feel like that you've really given an interview. यानी वो आधी घंटे में आप समझ लीजिए कि आपका पूरा निचोड़ निकाल लेंगे. वो गन्ने की मशीन में गन्ना तीसरी बार निकल के बाहर आता है तो कैसा हो जाता है. These interviews are like that. I remember one of the students sharing that Airtel interview, he was expecting first question would be, tell me about yourself. And his first question was something with respect to a direct tax avoidance treaty with another country. So basically, apparently, something in his resume sparked that particular question, and that was the first question. And the first half hour was all tax related question, and the last 5 minutes were questions about yourself and other stuff like that. So the larger the package in terms of these companies offer, the more technical and more grilling the interviews would be. However, it's very company specific. So companies like HUN and all, they may not really grill you too much. They'll just check your basic thought process in terms of how quick are you able to analyze things. And based on that, they'll be very quick in terms of taking their decisions. So there are certain companies who do written interviews, written tests as well. There will be a screen will be giving questions to you, and you'll have to say to the screen, they'll get it recorded, evaluate, and based on that, then your interviews would happen. So one thing is for sure, every company takes a PI. You take GD primarily as an elimination based on the communication skills if there are a large number of people to be evaluated in the ICAI campus. However, in virtual space, GD is not as much prevalent, but it is not that it is completely vanished. Still, a lot of companies do take it. So ITC is purely PI based, and the PI primarily is into costing, SFM, Index, GST stuff. And then you have the big three, they have a different process. They'll assign you a buddy. This is only mostly for the rankers, and the buddy will then first train you in terms of what is expected. Then there will be a case study given to you. You have to analyze that case study, discuss that particular case study, and based on that, how you analyze it and what angles you bring onto it is basically what you would be evaluated. A lot of companies use case study, not for a lot of roles, but few roles. So valuation roles would also involve case study. Management trainee roles, a lot of companies which are offering profiles in management trainee, you will find case studies there. तो वो business case study होगी कोई, या तो उनके खुद का कोई business होगा कि एक product launch किया, fail हो गया तो उसको कैसे relaunch कर सकते हैं, या एक financial business case study होगी जिसमें P ratios, profitabilities ये सब दिया होगा और आपको analyze करके बताना पड़ेगा कि ये business में पैसा लगाना है नहीं लगाना है, investment करके फायदा है या नहीं है. तो कई सारी कंपनीज ऑफ कैंपस में केस स्टडी आपको दे देती है और बोलती है एक दिन में सॉल्व करके दो, ऐसा भी होता है. ठीक है, HDFC के तो क्वेश्चंस ही दिए हुए हैं, देख लेना आप स्लाइड से. देन एक्सेंचर बिजनेस कंसल्टिंग रोल इन्होंने स्टार्ट किया था. दे स्टार्टेड इट अ ईयर अगो, and it's very the initial stage what they have. It's a decent good profile, not the best of it, not the worst of it. Definitely people say better than Big Fours and all. Decent work-life balance, वो कोई बहुत बड़ा issue नहीं है. Business consulting kind of role, they have a separate wing for it, which is where they recruit the first attempters. So this is 3 rounds of PI and what it is. Airtel, I told you. So there are 2 rounds here. Both are technical. The first one technical, very grilling. If you clear that, the second one is the CFO round. And normally partner CFO may not reject too many people, which is not the case here. So tax में भी partner बहुत reject करते हैं, और एयरटेल जैसी कंपनी जैसे में भी CFO रिजेक्ट करता है कैंडिडेट्स को. Then Marico again is GD plus 2 PI. Normally they'll have one case study based GD, and most of the questions would be from your articleship and real life situation. PSUs usually are good places to be with if you want to do studies alongside, so you get decent good time to do or pursue other things. Very good work life balance, job security. However, obviously, PSU culture may not be very, very aggressive. So if you're looking for a hardcore, without work-life balance experience, may not be the best place. If you want to get into UPSC and all, maybe you can think of a career to start with here. Not the best advice to give because that's maybe not correct ethically, but yeah, that's what people do. Again, this is the kind of role. So normally their roles would be more on capital budgeting and how you can improve the business from that particular perspective, and then what you've done during your articleship. L&T does take a psychometric test. What it is and all, that's a separate discussion altogether. And mostly questions would be in terms of current affairs, company law, compliances and all that. So these are basically individual experiences we have taken from a couple of people who have given the interviews in the past. And based on that, the team has kind of populated that. Flipkart, this time it's not there. Vedanta recruits a large number of CS. Primarily, they just have PIs to offer, and Mahindra now they have created 2 kind of roles. One is for the ranker, one is for the non-ranker. Non-ranker role is like 8-9 lakhs kind of CTC, pure accounting and back of, those industry kind of roles. Rankers, they basically take in their management trainee role, which is similar to the management trainee profile. So this is one sheet which I'll share. Sorry that I'm kind of rushing it across for your own sake. And this is another sheet. This is something which is available for access to the FAST campus trainees. It is available in the FAST app. So it may not be something which I may be able to available in the public domain, but this is basically what we have done is we have created domain-wise questions. So in this particular domain, these are the possible questions. Not that this is only what will be asked, but the idea is that before you go into these interviews, if you see these particular questions, you at least will have a better idea in terms of, okay, that I should be at least prepared for it. So आप थोड़ा सा conscious उन lines पर हो जाएंगे. Cool. So and that was quite a bit. In fact, consistently people watching that pretty impressed. C बनने के बाद भी आप लोग इतने inquisitive हैं. One last tip, and if I have missed on any question, you can just put it in the summary here. I would rather put it like that is, doston, first job makes a hell lot of a difference. You have your first job and you start at a 25, 30, 35 kind of a package, or get into an iBanking role, get into co-finance, business consulting, management training profiles. I mean, there's no looking back. I'm not saying that if you don't get any of these roles, you'll always keep looking back. No. It's just that you'll have to put that extra effort in the initial first 2 years of your career, prove your mettle, look out for opportunities very, very aggressively. You'll not be having too much of breathing space to keep with yourself if you really want to come back on the fast track. And after 2 years of your performance-oriented growth, you can definitely jump on and maybe in 5 years be at par with people who started with a 25 lakhs kind of a package or a 30, 35. But the ones who start with a better company, better profile, better package initially always would have that head start and at least a 2 years head start. Which essentially brings me to the point that A, please make sure, and you may feel that I'm being very, very, hypocrite or what should I say? I don't know. Unreasonable in mentioning this particular fact कि CA बनने के बाद भी सर बोल रहे हैं मेहनत करो. But I would be of the very strong opinion, guys, that you should be sincere in terms of your preparation. I'm not saying seriously prepare karo, day in, day out karo. This is not that kind of a CA study preparation. It's more of being conscious about things. When I say conscious about things, you're reading in the news Hindenburg report. You should not be reading Hindenburg report say Adani ke share pe kya ho raha hai. That's about it. What is the report? What points has he pointed out? What has come out of it? Budget analysis. There's so many WhatsApp being shared. That bit of information not going to help. Behind that, between the lines is what you'll have to do. So you'll have to read more detailed articles. You'll have to consume that kind of information. And you'll have to consume with this particular notion that I just don't want to look that I'm having this information available with me and I am a reader, I am updated with the current affairs. Rather, I should be able to debate on those points, express my opinion with a sound base and background to it. Once you develop that particular habit and you start consuming information in that particular sense, is where you start making a difference in your performance of interview. Please understand there are people who are giving interviews just for the sake of having some mock experiences, which is absolutely surprising because for you may be feeling I'm giving a mock interview. But if you give casually 2-3 interviews, your average performance in the next interview is going to be like that. Because you've developed that attitude of appearing for interviews unprepared. So please make sure that before you get into the interviews, you're well prepared for it. How do I prepare myself well for it? You can take up any particular training if you want to, or the CA Buddy program. Not just with FAST, you can take it up with any particular available source, even in your local city or any other person providing it. The kind of cost which any of these training program would cost usually will not be more than possibly a 1-day salary or even a half-day salary in some cases. It won't be more than that. But please understand, if it could help you to crack one better job, not just in terms of salary or package, but in terms of having the right start with a career and domain of your choice, believe me, you will have a different career path. So in that sense, my final verdict would be that please be conscious about preparing for interviews. Not everybody is, and that's your advantage. So if you're sitting here at 11 p.m. listening to me for constantly 1.5 hours, is more or less a monologue because I've been sharing with information. You've been consuming it. So I obviously assume that in that sense, you already have that sensitivity in your mind built up. It's just that you will have to take this, or you'll have to use this momentum which you've developed for yourself till your process of interviews. So you still have good 20 plus days of the ICAI campus. You can really take up a particular training. You can really start consuming the material on a daily basis, be it business newspapers or a magazine, reading articles, listening to debates, relevant context and stuff. Also brushing up a little bit of your knowledge of the space or career of your choice. Taking at least a couple of mock interviews and GDs before you get into the real ones. So that once you get there, more than you being prepared, you know that you're going there confidently because you feel that you're actually well prepared. And you know, that shows on your face. So for the interviewer, when he sees you and when he sees the next candidate, who's an untrained one, than you being one who's been conscious preparing for it. I mean, the very first minute he will evaluate and he'll say that, yes, this guy is looking to me more promising because of the aptitude. You'll find in 50% of your interviews, technical questions would form just 25% of the whole interview process. 75% is going to be your aptitude, attitude, and the way you kind of look at things, analyze. Because they know that you've done your course of chartered accountancy, so we don't really want to too much test on your technicals, except your thought process, brushing up, updation. Most of the companies, not all. So 75% would be these kind of questions, which they'll basically pick up from articleship and stuff like that in terms of how detailed you've done that. So my simple last verdict would be that please have a conscious time allocated for your interview preparation on a daily basis. It could be half-hour slots, 4 slots in a day. It could be 2 to 3 hours in a day. Or it could be just target that this newspaper, this magazine, this particular content I have to consume on a daily basis. I have to create groups, identify venues where I can do some mock GDs, trainings, and develop on. You have issues specifically identified, communication का problem है, CV proper नहीं है. Seek responses, approach people, try to get it rectified. 20 दिन है, communication improve हो सकता है क्या? It can be better than what it is today, if not perfect. So look at it in that particular sense. Thank you very much for your time. I hope the session was useful. Any feedback you want to share, please put it in the comments. Would be happy to have them and would learn out of it. Any questions if I've missed, you can please let me know. Else, let's call it a day. Thank you. Front office role, private wealth management firm, package is only 7 lakh. What's your view? My long-term aim is investment banking. I mean, look at that private wealth management firm. It's a very, very boutique firm, and the firm longevity itself is in doubt, or the systems of the firm are not really, really well established. No. If it's an established, well-reputed firm, has already proven and has stands the test of time and has gone through initial cycles of ups and lows, then just don't miss it because the package is just 7 lakhs. But because the package is too low, and I don't know the name of the firm, that's why I said that you'll have to do your due diligence in joining it. Okay, GDPI registration link is something which I'll share. The Campus Buddy program. So the community link which I've shared, it's there as well. And wait a minute, I would share that with you here. So this is the Fast CA Campus Buddies program link. Shall we prepare for aptitude? I mean, you should prepare for any particular interview process which can come your way. So the answer is yes. Fast campus training की अगर आप student हो तो क्या हम कर रहे हैं? तो yes, this Saturday and Sunday we have a training for psychometric and aptitude test. Can you really train yourself into these tests? No, honestly speaking, not in a very short span of time. But you can at least be a little accustomed with what these tests are so that you don't do basic mistakes in it. Okay, thank you. Bye. And all the very best. Master classes, so it's not specified. There could be only one master class. There could be like 5-10 master classes. It would be things like email writing skills. It could be things like Excel, basic formulae and all. So stuff like that. So any skills which we identify could be useful for your campus recruitment programs. We will just take a session on that. But there's no, there's no predefined schedule for it. What comes our way is something which we'll be taking. Yes, any specific course on internal audit, I would just suggest that, you don't really need a course for internal audit. I mean, you just need a sensitivity in terms of what kind of questions are asked. Just prepare it yourself and take up a mock interview. So take a couple of mock interviews into internal audit. I think that's about of learning is sufficient. Taking a course on internal audit will be telling you कि ये चीज़ें तुमको पढ़ना है जो तुम एक पेपर में देख के भी समझ जाओगे कि ये पढ़ना है. और obvious सी बात है, no trainer is going to teach you audit, in a span of 3, 4, 5 hours. They'll just tell you these are the important things. This is what you have to understand. So which otherwise with these particular sheets we'll be doing. So any kind of domain specific input you need, I think Campus Buddy program is perfect for you. आप बता दो इंटरनल ऑडिट का चाहिए, वही वाले 2 मॉक इंटरव्यूज आपके कराएंगे. आपका सीए बडी भी उस पर्टिकुलर डोमेन में आपको नॉलेज देगा. आपको कोई भी पॉइंट पे इन्फॉर्मेशन चाहिए आप उससे ले लो. GRO consultant, I'll have to check. It's a very specific thing. Fast placement course. So what we do is basically, I'll tell you what we cover. So the first session is an induction session where we understand where you are, what your aspirations are. So before, after kind of setting the perspective, right? Second, third sessions are in GDs. So we take GDs and we train you first in terms of GD. Then we take some GDs for you, mock GDs, and we give you evaluation. When we say we, it means what? So we have corporate trainers, basically people who have trained chartered accountants earlier, but are not CAs themselves. They've been training CAs, corporates, MBA aspirants, and a lot of people into campus placements and other things. And they have 15 odd years of experience. They've done their doctorate in, campus training related stuff as in aspirations of job seekers and providers. So very, very, experienced people. And still will be able to connect really very well. So the process, if you see, daily basis, students have to kind of identify the wow points, what they have learned. They take a selfie, they share, they create clubs, they do discussions. Sometimes evening they'll just meet up and do, mock GDs and all. So it's a community learning also. But it's not purely community-based that you have a community, you have a group of students and they practice amongst themselves and then they evaluate themselves. Everything is with a professional trainer. So we have a batch size limitation of 30, 40 kinds. Then GD, then we do resume CV building. We give you individual feedbacks onto it. And then we do mock PIs. So how to introduce yourself, possible questions, HR questions, 5 years down the line, where do you see yourself, why our company, how to prepare for them, and then taking those mock interviews. And then technical. So technical questions, common questions which are asked, resume based, how questions are asked. Couple of interviews will be taken in front of you, will give you input, and then we'll take mock PS. Then we'll train you into aptitude and psychometric, orientation session on them, what they are exactly, and a couple of sample tests to share with you. And then a little bit on communication and grooming. So your body language, your presence, your IT presence, how to take up Zoom, all that. This is all supported with a lot of content, which is shared with the candidates on the FAST app, through which you should be able to kind of access this content whenever your interviews are coming up. So this is basically the whole package. We do it for now what we've done is it is like 15 days, 2 hours a day. So we'll be doing it like 3 hours into 10 days. So 30 hours of training is what it is. And apart from that, a couple of other mock interviews, 1-to-1 is what we do. If I join CA Buddy now, can I give interview after 15th Feb once I know the companies I'm shortlisted? Yeah, absolutely. So it's up to you, basically. So we will give you slots. Mostly these slots would be on the weekends mostly. So we'll prefer if you can take the weekend slots. If not, we'll try to arrange it during the weekdays, but then it will be off timings because these will all be taken by people who are experienced and in that domain. If you want start audit, so there'll be a guy who will be from start audit and working on it. Are taking your interviews for it. तो उस सेंस में इट इज़ अप टू यू, आपको कब करना है। उसका 1 महीने का वैलिडिटी रखा है हमने, आप अगले 1 महीने में जब इंटरव्यू लेना है ले सकते हो, जितनी 1 महीने तक मास्टर क्लास होगी सब आपको मिलेगी, वो वैसा है। I got an offer from Infosys for business finance role. What are your views on that if I want to build a career in finance? तो देखो उनका जो business finance role है ना, that's more into जो मैं समझा रहा था कि कोई भी कंपनी में जो उनका फाइनेंस डिवीजन होता है वो उससे रिलेटेड है। और इन्फोसिस का रोल ऐसे अच्छा है, कंपनी अच्छी है। तो मैं कुछ सीनियर से आपको कनेक्ट करा दूंगा, एक बार आप कम्युनिटी में आ जाओ, उसके बाद मुझे मैसेज कर देना, तो मैं कोई सीनियर से आपको मिलवा के बात करा दूंगा। दिल गिव यू हॉर्सेज माउथ इन्फॉर्मेशन, जो लोग वहाँ पे काम कर रहे हैं या उन्होंने पहले 1-2 साल काम किया है, तो मुझसे सब एग्जैक्टली समझ लेना कि अंदर क्या क्या है, क्या क्या पॉसिबल रोल्स होते हैं, तो बेस्ट इनपुट मिल जाएगा। दिस इज फॉर यू रितेश। थैंक यू सिद्धार्थ। हाउ कैन यू इम्प्रूव योर कम्युनिकेशन? कम्युनिकेशन इम्प्रूव करने का स्टेज पे एक ही तरीका है, कम्युनिकेट। कैसे? ग्रुप बना के, तो हमें ये अभी एक इंग्लिश क्लब स्टार्ट करने का सोचा है। तो उसमें क्या करेंगे, जितने भी इंटरेस्टेड लोग हैं सब ज्वाइन कर लो। डेली आपको एक टॉपिक दे दिया जाएगा, उस पर आपको प्रिपेयर करके आना और ऐसे ही अंग्रेजी में बात करनी। सो यू विल एंड अप व्हेन यू स्टार्ट कम्युनिकेटिंग, you will automatically identify your mistakes and you will see, oh, he said like this, so this is the way I could possibly speak. And then there would also be a trainer who will be on and off coming in there, so you'll not be constantly watching because we want to keep it natural. And then he or she will pick out that, you don't say belongs to me, you say belong to me or belongs to me. Some basic corrections is what he or she will do, so that when you're communicating during your interview, if you do this for the next practice for next 10-15 days, at least you don't do those basic grammatical mistakes. So grammar is not something which you can improve overnight, but you can at least improve a workable communication, so that one, you don't do basic mistakes, so you look better trained in terms of speaking or communication. At least you have a part of your whole interview process which is in proper Angrezi communication. This is obviously if I'm saying that you really have your हाथ तंगे अंग्रेजी पे अपना, और अगर ऐसा है कि ठीक ठाक है, तो जितना कम्युनिकेट करोगे उतना डेवलप होगा, यू एंड अप पिकिंग लर्निंग फ्रॉम वन और द अदर। तो इवन माई केस आई हैड अ वेरी ऐसे एवी टाइप का अंग्रेजी था मेरा भी। When I joined ITC, I worked there for 3 years, so I picked most of my language from there only. Is your training program already started? So the next session is going to start in the coming week, which is the next week. So if you enroll now, then you get the next session, which will start from Monday, I guess. Past finishing school, how much work, how long is it, and are there any new batches coming up? तो देखो, मंडे से एक बैच स्टार्ट हो रहा है, कमिंग मंडे से, जिसे फास्ट कैंपस ट्रेनिंग मॉड्यूल बोलते हैं। तो वो ये 10 दिन का 3 घंटे का सेशन है, जिसमें जितनी चीज़ें मैंने वो बताई वो होगी, प्लस मॉक जीडी और मॉक पीआईज आपको 1-to-1 मिलेंगे। सीए बड़ी मैंने बता दिया, एंड ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम भी बता दिया। तो आई होप आई हैव आंसर्ड दिनेश एंड यश योर क्वेश्चंस. Oops, wow, thank you. It's been 1.5 hours of you patiently listening, and I think that's about it. Tata, see you, bye. Wish you all the very best. Do very well in your careers. And कुछ भी आपको इस सेशन का काम का लगा हो जिससे नौकरी में आपको मदद मिली हो, तो मिठाई ज़रूर